Hey, UMD. I have reading lesson number 5 for you here today, and we will be continuing to read The Stars Beneath Our Feet. Please follow along in your book if you have it on the video or on the Google Slides. If you haven't been clicking on the Google Slides, that's a really good way to easily click back to the text when you're answering the questions in the assignment. So click open that slide link at the top of the instructions if you want to look back at the text, and you should. So do that. Okay, when I ask you questions, press pause on the video and answer to yourself in your head, or if you've got a parent or a grandma or a friend next to you, or video chatting with you so you can talk just like we do in class. And today something really crazy happens, and so really make a mind movie in your head. I'll try to read with like a lot of intonation in my voice so you know what I'm thinking too. All right, so I'm going to just actually get straight into the reading today because it's a little long. I want you to be thinking about story, setting, characters, the problems that have come up. The setting today doesn't change. We're just going to be downstairs in the after-school room with Lolly and Big Rose the whole time. Big problem happens. You already know how it started last time. Big Rose has started building downstairs with him, and does he like it? No, he does not. Okay, here we go. So, why do we read sad stories on purpose? We talked about last week why would we do things like that? And remember I told you that I think that when we do hard things on purpose, or especially now that we're reading like kind of a sad story on purpose, I think it has really huge meaning in our lives. And here's the connection I think we can make. I think making connections from like a sad, hard story to our own lives can often like give us hope or help us think through our own lives and the sad or hard things that are going on. Like, for example, I just finished a book called This Is Chance, and it's about a huge earthquake that happened in 1964 in Alaska. It was the biggest earthquake that ever happened in North America. And it was a 9.4, I think, which is really, really big. I've been in a bunch of big earthquakes, and it's way bigger than the one I was in. And it lasted for 4.5 minutes. The earthquakes I've been in have not lasted more than like a minute or something like that. 4.5 minutes of intense shaking. I mean, it's unbelievable. We can't really even imagine what that would be like. And this entire town of Anchorage, Alaska almost got like completely destroyed. Tons of people died. Why would I want to read a book about that? Why would I want to read a book about that during a really hard time in the world with coronavirus? Well, because I think it helps me think through difficult things in my life. And also, that book had a lot of hope because the city and so many of the people came together and survived a horrible thing, and were actually really happy while they were helping each other. And that makes me feel very hopeful for every single day that's so hard right now about coronavirus. So that's one reason I think it's great to read stories, even if they're really sad or hard, because we can really make important connections. And also, I just think connections are really fun to make when we're reading. I know all the time in class, when you guys make a connection to something you knew that happened in the past in that story, your eyes light up and you're like, oh, remember when? You love that. So they're just fun. And as we're reading today, I really want you to do this. Connect to what you already know in the story about, and to your life. So what you already know about like Lolly and things that have happened to him, and also your own life here in chapter 18. Here we go. By the next day, I had a fresh supply of Legos, and I knew how to get rid of Big Head Rose. I had been watching her build. She was fast, but still learning. I'd been messing with Legos for years. A lot of the mistakes I had seen her make over the past days were mistakes I used to make when I first started. I would take her down hard. Me just thinking that made me feel good. Well, maybe not good exactly. Good ain't the right word. It made me feel different. Now I'm going to stop pausing, and I'm going to start pausing, and I want you to fill in the blank. just like we do in class when we do shared reading. So you got to be paying careful attention to the text so you can fill in the blank. Ever since Halloween, I've noticed that taking my, good, I hope you said revenge, on other people would do something to that rock I've been feeling in my chest. Remember the rock? I hope you're making a connection right now. Remember, he talks about the sadness that he has about Jermaine's death as a rock. The rock symbolizes his sadness. It's like, ugh, on his chest. I can connect to that. When I feel really bad about something, I feel that. It's like heavy and like, ugh, in my chest. And I'm positive most of you have probably felt that too. Being evil wouldn't make the rock, good, I hope you said disappear. Now, as I keep pausing, I'm not going to tell you what the word is, so you got to just pay attention. But being that way did make me not mind the rock being there. Just like when I heard the other after-schoolers make fun of Rose and call her names, or when I called her names, or when I told Heike there was a mouse. Remember Heike was his dad's girlfriend, or is his dad's girlfriend? All that made me not mind the rock. Making Rose feel bad made those feelings inside of me feel harder, less like a person. What is his motivation, you guys, for doing mean things or being evil, as he calls it? Look back at that part of the text and turn and tell someone next to you or think about it, because you got to answer that question in the assignment. What does he get out of being evil? What is his motivation? Why does he think if he acts rude to her, why does it do something for him? What does it do for him? Okay, I really want to hear your answer in your assignment a little later. And there was something else inside of me that was afraid of that, afraid of me becoming more and more bad thoughts. Big Head was on her side of the room, building some lopsided wall. Ooh, I guess when he said bad thoughts, he stopped his thinking right there and started thinking about Big Rose instead. Rosamond, I shouted. Remember, that's her real name. She glanced over at me over her shoulder. Come here, I said. She ignored me. I stomped over to her. I watched what the girl was doing for a minute, then squatted. I can imagine him squatting down to her and saying, Big Rose, this storage room ain't big enough for the two of us, I said all low, just in case Mr. Ali was eavesdropping outside the door. She just kept stacking blocks. I know you can hear me, I told her. You ain't dumb you ain't dumb like you like everybody to think. She paused. I see you reading your little books every day. Connection. Do you guys remember? Yup. She's always reading those little books in after school. Isn't it fun to remember things from the other parts of the story? Big Rose turned but avoided my face. This is my room, I whispered. It was my idea to ask Ali if I could use it. This is my... She blinked. If you're having trouble, if you lose where we are, look for the little red arrow. But I can see you are the sort that won't fail unless they're forced out. I leaned into her. You ain't the only gangsta up in here. I was feeling bad as Tupac. She started stacking blocks again. I grabbed her hand to stop her. She jerked her hand away. I looked toward the door for Mr. Ali, then went on. Now, this is how it's going to go down, Biggie. You and me, we're going to have a contest. Got it? A contest. Connection. Can you connect to this talk about Tupac and Biggie? Do you know about them? What is his motivation for calling her that? Ooh, do you see how we're connecting connections with character motivation from last week's lesson? Why would he call her that? Why would he say he's like Tupac? What do you know about them? Pause here, turn and talk to someone, tell them. How does that connect with the story? All right, let's go back. He probably said, oh, because they had a big fight, right? They were rivals. I guess he's saying he's rival. Big Rose is his rival. Big Rose surprised me by standing up too. I didn't like this because now she towered over me. She must have been at least a half foot taller. I folded my arms and tried to look tough. I had learned that this was the only way to deal with this one. Big Rose folded her arms too and glared down at me. I said, this is how it goes. You know that big green dragon down at Tuttle's Toy? Their Midtown store? Sorry, it's covering. Big Rose nodded and started staring at the floor. Good. This little thing is annoying. That dragon is maybe 20 feet high at least, and it's made all out of Legos. Probably a gazillion tiny Lego bricks. In fact, the dude who built that dragon is probably a Lego. The way I see it, only a Lego master belongs here in my city room. I waved my hands around me the way Mr. Jonathan would have done. Big Rose just kept on staring at the floor. I guess she was listening. Now, I said, not whispering anymore. You and me are going to have a contest to see who can build the tallest tower here in my city room. A tower made of Legos. We start tomorrow during after school. The first one of us to stack a tower that is 10 feet tall is the loser is banished from the city room forever. I stuck my hand out toward her. She waited a minute and then she shook it. Big Rose had a grip. She still wasn't looking at me in the face. But this girl did not know who she was dealing with. Rookie, I thought. I am a true Lego master. I grinned at her as I could. Do you know the word rookie? Rookie means someone new to or inexperienced in a hobby or sport. So he's saying, well, I'm the master. Big Rose is a rookie. Like, she doesn't know too much about Legos, he thinks. Let's see. All right, setting change. Remember, the 3 stars means setting change here. On the first day of our 10-foot tower contest, Big Rose was first into my city room. By the time I had finished the good decimals that Miss Ling had assigned, Big Rose had already laid the first story of her tower. She didn't even meet eyes with me when I stepped into the... I could tell that she was taking this contest. Didn't want to get booted out of my Lego universe. My Lego verse. I had borrowed Ma's tape measure from her closet so we could keep track of our towers. I knew Big Rose would never be able to make something go as tall as 10 feet. She didn't have the skills. She was no Lego master. Dummy. Connection. When have you, like Lolly, worked really hard for something you really wanted? Remember I said in the beginning of the lesson, I think it's really important to make personal connections as we read. When have you done that? It's part of what makes reading really fun. When did you work really hard like Lolly is right now? He wants to win this contest so he can have his room back. When did you do something like that? You're going to have to answer that question in the assignment, so think about it. All right, back to the text. I got busy building. We had a lot of blocks, but I guess each of us might have to start tearing apart bits of our cities in order to build our towers as high as we both needed to. We hadn't reached that point yet, but we might. I decided to call mine Blaze Tower, after King Blaze, the ruler of my... Blaze Tower was where the monarch went to be alone with his... about the galaxy, and when he wanted to deep think. I think you guys have learned about the word monarch before. I think in 3rd grade you learned about countries that have kings or queens. A monarch is the ruler, or the king or the queen, of a country or nation. So in his imaginary world, King Blaze is the monarch of Moneycrum and the city of Harmony. Remember those names? Instead of 10 feet, Blaze Tower was really 10 miles high. I stared up at the storage room ceiling, up through it. I imagined the clouds and the stars up above. Something 10 miles high might stick up into outer. It would be a miracle building that everybody would admire and get jealous of. Oh, setting change. Next day. The second day of the contest, I had decided that I would really go crazy. I had made some progress with my tower, but it seemed like as fast as I piled bricks, Big Rose was always a little faster. I wasn't about her, really. She couldn't keep up that pace. She was still I was a starter. I hadn't told nobody about me and Big Rose's bet. I had thought about telling, but then I had thought about how it might form a crowd in here. This thing made me, that was a hard one, good, anxious. Means like nervous enough without having all of after school ogling over my shoulders. At the end of the second day, I took out Ma's tape measure and what we had done so far. Big Rose's was almost 4 feet tall. Blaze Tower was just under 3 feet. She didn't react to this news. She just grabbed her sack of tiny books and flew. Wait, go back and look at that text. Whose is taller right now? Right, Big Rose's. Her construction was almost 4 feet and Blaze Tower was just under 3. Connection. When have you felt so confident about something like this? Has there ever been anything where you were like, oh, I got this. I know how to do this so well. This is easy. I want you to keep that in your brain. It's going to help you think through what happens to Lolly. Okay, setting change next day. I was hoping now that I could catch up to her. Big Rose's tower was about 2 feet taller than mine was. I could not let her whoop me. This was my city room. King Blaze was the ruler. Today, the third day of the 10-foot tower contest, I was feeling edgy. Vega and Sunshine sat on the floor munching granola bars, watching us. Big Rose had got to the point where she had to use one of the ladders in here to reach the top of the tower. And she had started cannibalizing parts of her city to add on to its height. Cannibalizing means in this sense eating up her own tower. Cannibals eat each other. Cannibals are people who eat other people. Ew. Usually they're in a scary movie. And so she's taking apart part of her other city building so that she can keep making her tower the height. I had started to get a little worried. I would not let this dumb girl succeed, I thought. I usually liked a good test. I think Ma had got me hooked growing up because we used to compete with each other on a lot of things. She was always pinning me down and wrestling me. My favorite was our story challenges. Those things were fun. How you played it was easy. Ma and me would lie on her bed and she would start reading out loud from one of her mystery books. Usually Sherlock Holmes, but sometimes other ones. At a certain part of the book, she would stop reading and she would turn to me. What do you think, Lolly? Ma'd say. What do you think? Then I would take over the story from out of my head. I would just make up what happened next and tell her out loud. After a while, she would take her turn, picking up where I left off, and she'd make up some new part of the... We'd go back and forth like that, adding on, until Ma would say it was time for bed. I would always get the chance to end the story. I loved that. Those stories were fun. We needed to start playing them again. Did you notice? He just made a connection to what's happening with him and something that used to happen in his life. Okay, back to the text. On her side of the room, Biggie was still working real fast. Get it, Biggie? Who's he talking about? Big Rose. But that's his little nickname because they're rivals right now. I didn't think she ever got tired. I didn't know you could stack Legos as quick as she was doing. I needed to hurry. Connection. Have you ever felt worried you might not accomplish what you want so badly? He's worried, starting to get worried. Have you ever felt like that? Turn and tell someone and pause. Okay, back to the text. The fourth day smelled like death. Defeat. Oh, what do you think is going to happen? The night before, I had measured hers was almost 9 feet. Mine was almost 7. We were both standing on opposite sides of the room. Big Rose was still laying bricks as fast as she could. I was too. And that was a hard word, vultures were dangling around. For some wacko reason, Miss Jenna had started to let our after-school class come to the room after they had finished their homework. Everybody was lying around, watching me compete with Big Rose and adding comments about who they thought would win. They even ate their snacks in here. It was like a dang party. The chance of Big Rose winning scared me. I really didn't want to let her win, and for me to get banished from my own city room in front of everybody, it could happen. I started wondering if Big Rose would want to call off this game. Maybe come to a or something. Do you think he's going to offer a truce? Let's see. Would you? Maybe if you were worried enough like he is, right? Nah, I wouldn't give up. I decided if this girl was better than me, she was going to have to prove it. Run the clock down all the way to the end. 10 miles into the sky. We had both used up the Legos from the whole sections of our city. I had torn apart and recycled some of the blocks from Victoria and Hipposima, two of my neighborhoods. Oh, I guess those are other neighborhoods around the House of Moneycrum. I really hadn't wanted to do that. And my shoulders had started hurting real bad. I climbed up to the next step of my ladder so I could reach the top of Blaze Tower and started layering on another story of bricks. I chewed on a Sunny gave me for energy. Connection. Remember Sunny makes those little chocolates? Miss Jen, 9 on one of her pink fingernails, watched me. Across the room, I saw Big Rose shuffle down to the floor from the top of her ladder. She rushed toward her own city and started pulling apart more blocks to use on her. I gotta say, even if I thought she was using too many larger Legos on top of her tower and lots of small ones on it had held up good. Yesterday I was watching her and I thought that it looked familiar. That was a hard word, creation. I hope I said it right. I had seen it somewhere before, but I couldn't remember where. Big Rose was constructing an actual, from real life, I realized. I searched and shook my head after I had found a pic of the building on my phone. One World Trade. The tallest building in. I could only shake my head again. Now I watched her gather up more bricks and stomp toward her ladder. I really was starting to feel defeated. I wondered if. Now stop right there. Connection. One World Trade Center. Have you heard of that? That's this building in New York City. Sort of new. They built this building after the original World Trade Center buildings came down in September 11th. After the planes crashed into those buildings, they rebuilt it as one, kind of to show the unity of New York City and the whole country after that horrible thing happened in September 11th. So One World Trade Center is the building that is there in New York City now. And it's crazy tall compared to the other buildings. It's really beautiful. Just then, that loud, familiar sound began to rumble the room. Familiar means like you know it. So he's making a connection. You do too. You know this. It had been making that same noise since the first day I had started building my castle in here. The big heating vent on the wall was starting to shoot out warm air. Connection. What's that sound? Yeah, it's the heat. How did Lolly talk about it before? Do you remember? Yeah, I can imagine Jasmine saying, oh, yeah. In the beginning, he really liked that sound. It was like comforting to him. Now, though, watch what happens. But the huge vent was blowing right at the top of Big Rose's Freedom Tower. Today was the first day that her building had been tall enough to reach the vent. The whole room watched her tower for a minute. It started to back and forth, back, forth. From on the top of my ladder, I stared down at Big Rose. Her mouth hung open. She watched her tower wobble more and more and more and more. It's... Daryl B. shouted. Oh no, Miss Jen said. She covered her eyes. It wouldn't be long now. And sure, her creation tilted just a little too much to one side and sailed downward in a fabuloso explosion of Legos. Everybody jumped back. Not only had her Freedom Tower collapsed, but when it did fall, it fell right on top of the rest of her city. Lego bricks skittered across the... Rose was obliterated. Good, that's a hard word. Obliterated means like gone, like destroyed. Her face got real. She shut her. I win, I shouted from the top of my ladder. I was so joyous, I shot up into the air. When I landed back onto the ladder step, one of my feet 7 feet in the air. I almost fell off. My right hand snatched my ladder. My left hand swung into the air. It scraped Blaze Tower. Oh, I yelled. My Blaze Tower didn't fall. I had it with my left hand and was holding it still. I carefully steadied both feet onto the ladder. Trying not to shake, I kept holding onto my tower. Okay, so important to visualize here. So he's trying not to shake, but he's holding onto the ladder. And the building. Lolly, let go and come down. I didn't want to speak out of fear that the sound might crumble my... Though I was safe on the ladder again, I was to let go of my tower. I didn't want it to start. I heard somebody cackle. Good job. Do you know that word? It's like an evil laugh. It was Big Rose down below. She had run over to me and was standing down below with the Gladys face. Help! I finally said. Nobody knew what to do. I kept holding onto my tower to keep it steady. Help me, Vega! He scratched his head. Big Rose grinned and shrugged. There really was nothing they could do. There wasn't any way they could help me. I must have stood there for at least 15 minutes, one hand grabbing my ladder, the other hand gripping the top of Blaze. My shoulders and arms ached. Good. Big Rose was now sitting on the floor, legs crossed, smiling up at me. Come down, Lolly, Miss Jen said again. Your tower's steady. Imagine this. He's holding it. Should he come down? I closed my eyes, tense. My left hand released my building. Blaze Tower seemed okay. I was relieved. But then I noticed it was actually twitching the tiniest bit, side to side. I kept reaching out to touch it, trying to make it steady, but every time its side, that made the worse. It was swooping now, back and forth, back, forth. The crumble started at the foot of the tower. The bottom skidded to one side like somebody had kicked its legs out from under it. Then the top of the leaned and tipped over, and my dreams of the Lego Master of the City room came crashing. No, I yelled and shut my eyes. Blaze. Everyone hopped back some more. Once the last brick had stopped echoing in the room, I gazed around. It looked like a Lego giant had just thrown up in there. What is going on? I heard Mr. Ali shout. What is going on? I heard Mr. Ali shout. He stood in the doorway, gawking at the mess. That's like I didn't have nothing to say. In a funny way, my tower collapse seemed to ease me up a bit, soften my chest rock. I didn't know why. Wallace, Ali said, I think it's time we have another chat. After that, the only thing I could hear was Big Rose's loud hand claps and giggles repeating across the room. Her face was lit up. Delighted. Connection. Have you ever felt like Lolly or Big Rose in this part? I'm going to answer that question. Lolly's tower fell. Big Rose's tower fell. How is he feeling now, though? How is she feeling now? I really want to know a time when you felt like that, too. All right, so just a quick review here. You're going to use race to write about this text. Why do we use race? Mainly for organization. I don't know if you guys have seen Mary Poppins before. It's one of my favorite movies ever. Maybe we should watch it together sometime. It's such a good movie. But there's this great part where they got to clean up the room, and Mary Poppins helps them to organize everything with magic. So make sure you use all 4 parts of race today. Please make sure you cite evidence. A lot of people have not been using the text to prove their answer is right. Why do you need to cite evidence? For that evidence as proof. Okay, then make sure you explain that proof with an E sentence. Your answer should be at least 3 sentences long. Don't forget those capital letters and periods. Let me show you Ryan's really great work here. I'm showing him off again, but he's the only person I could show who used this question structure really well. Because he used my question structure and followed the directions, his writing has organization, check, proof, check, and complete sentences, check. Here's how it works. Your first 3 questions work like this too. Pay close attention. He got 100%, 8 out of 8. I said to him, perfect job. You used the questions perfectly to write your answer at number 3. Don't forget to capitalize each sentence always. Number 1 asks you to answer the question using R and A only. Now you have a different question today, but last week's question was what was Lolly's motivation for dropping the bag of Legos in the end? So right there, Ryan just answered it. Lolly dropped the bag because blah, blah, blah. Then the next question asks you to pick some text as evidence so that you can cite that text. What text proves your answer is right? He chose the second one. Third, now you put it all together. The third question says now add all the parts of race together to answer number 1 again. Because in number 1, you did R and A. Then in number 2, you picked a C. Now you got to put R, A, C together and finish it up with an E. Listen to his full answer here. Lolly dropped the bag because the big fight that he and Big Rose had gotten into him and made him mad. That's why he dropped the bag for her. And upset, so he ran away. In the text it says, see, now he grabs this text right here that he chose in number 2 and he writes it down here. In the text it says, I had felt like a champ after staring her down. Then he explains what this shows. This shows that Lolly and Big Rose don't really get along. Awesome job, Ryan. So in your work today, you're going to get 1 point for each part of race, and then a fifth point if you got complete sentences. There are several questions today. The first 3 are like that. Answer this question. What is Lolly's motivation for doing mean things or being evil? That was in the beginning of chapter 18, so go back and look at the text. I give you some options for evidence here. Pick one. Then put it all together in a race answer. Then I have 3 connection questions I want you to write about. Since these are connecting to your own life, maybe you don't need to use the text as evidence because they're really from your own life. But you should definitely use R and A, and I still want you to push for at least 3 sentences. I've seen 3rd graders writing during distance learning that is longer than many of what you all write. You can write more. I need to see at least 3 sentences for each question here. All right, everybody, I'm very excited to not only read about what you think about Lolly and that rock he has, but also the connections you're making to your own life in this story. Because remember, one of the reasons we read sad and hard stories is because we all go through sad and hard things in our own life. And reading about stuff like this can really help us not only think through our own hard and sad stuff, but also it can help us to find places of hope. Mwah! I love you, and I can't wait to read your work. See ya! Press stop. You can press stop now.